Let's call to order the Building and Grounds Committee meeting this evening for Fibber High School. And is there any public comment? Okay. Agenda changes. We're going to move the HVAC option discussion up in front of the asbestos so that Kirk doesn't have to stay all night. Anybody got any objections to that?
No.
Okay. All right. So, how do you want to start with this discussion?
Well, there's a couple documents that are in a file. In there is the original brick report for the boiler replacement study. Actually, I'm using new technology. So behind me, hopefully, is the kind of a diagram of the locations. If you went with option 3A, there is a packet of invoices from Bello on the different services that we've had from the boiler. And then I have a kind of a summary. I went through Brick's review and put together a summary of the different options, what the positives, the pros and the cons were, and then listed all of the, I believe the current prices on there. And then last but not least is a breakdown of all the estimated costs for each of these. So, I don't know. I know this has been on different board meetings for about probably close to 2 years. We've got a boiler that's running at minimal capacity, I don't know, 20%, 30%, whatever it is. It's about 20 years old. What they've told me is you can get anywhere from about 20 to 30 years on a boiler. There's really no way to know if this boiler, how much time it has left, if it's at the end of its life or it has 10 more years. It's kind of hard to tell. The multiple options in here include anything from not replacing or not touching the boiler at this time, all the way up to a complete new system where we replace the boiler and the air handlers and install electric heat downstairs and in the coach's office and things like that. So I've written quite a bit, put my 2 cents in. I know the original Health Life Safety Amendment was for $458,000, but it was to replace it, the boiler, with a hot water boiler system. It wasn't going to be a steam boiler. There's probably a big cost difference in putting a hot water as opposed to steam and some of those other options.
Yeah, we had looked at one way of cutting costs was to try to reuse that steam pipe, that steam supply pipe with the hot water system, just adding another pipe for the return pipe. Last time we spoke, we wanted to abate that pipe installation no matter what we do, so that was a $90,000 item to abate that and re-insulate it either way. So we would have to change out the heating coils and those suspended units in the gym with new hot water coils instead of steam. It's doable. It's feasible for the options.
But I think one of the negative aspects of that is you're going to reuse 65-year-old pipes and not knowing what you're going to do.
Right. So we could replace that, but then you're using the split systems in there, the suspended units and the condensing units outside, which were installed in 2003, and those have an estimated 20-year lifespan. So replacing those is going to be about $100,000 at least.
So we also had FGM brought out a structural engineer. One of the conversations we had, I know when Tyson was here back whenever, we kind of looked at the idea of putting 2 units on the ground. If if we were to go with option 3 on either side of the Hall of Fame. And then one of the board members mentioned, let's look at what if we put it on the roof to eliminate some of the ductwork. So this is the options that are up on the board behind me. The 3 options on the roof are, location 1 is on the Hall of Fame, location 2 is on the weight room, and location 3 is approximately where the unit is now that's used. These are gonna be a lot larger units. I don't remember the actual size as far as dimensions, but they're about almost 7,000 pounds for these units. So in all 3 cases, the structural engineer said there would have to be a fair amount of beefing up the truss system. And then they also gave me bids or prices on 2 ground locations, and those are, I don't know if you can see them or not, that was my attempt at, I'm not sure if I used Paint or what I used program to do this, but where the ground location for the HVAC unit is 1, that is where the current one is. And then the other one, the concern apparently years ago was that the noise would be too loud for the English classroom there. And when we kind of talked about it, we walked around to the south end, that unit is a lot noisier and it's probably closer to the classrooms, and there doesn't seem to be an issue with that. Plus there would be a fence that gets put in, so I'm assuming that would help probably drive noise up. So I don't really think there's gonna be an issue. The bids came in, the ground units, I think the bids were about $717,000. There was one option, if we went location 2 and 3, I think was $719,000. So those 2 are close. I don't know if there's a benefit of looking at a ground application as opposed to a roof application.
Access is the only thing to it for maintenance, but other than
Does
just,
that make it any cheaper for the maintenance, really? Or, I mean,
it's just getting a ladder out to change filters or reset anything, if you need to check anything out. Not a big difference.
Right, but option 3A for me, and I've said this in the past, one of the biggest benefits for me is it eliminates those 2 units in the gym. And those are put in, I think, 03. And I think they were put in on a budget. They're either on 100% or they're on 0. And so they just shoot the air straight down at you. They're just not very efficient. The new system, we would have ductwork that runs above the rafters, so you eliminate that ceiling work. I'll go ahead and show this. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see this or not. It's in your packet. What I did, and this takes all of these projects, including the HVAC, and I took the 3 accounts that these would typically come from, would be the building and grounds, working cash, and health, life, safety. And then I kind of did a projection of what both the asbestos and the roofing company kind of gave us, and then broke it out into a 5-year plan to look at where we could kind of get the money from those 3 funds. And it kind of estimated up here, this year's budget, we've got almost $340,000 budgeted for repairs and equipment. I know we went fairly high on that because we knew we were going to try to do some things. So later on, the budget, I just kind of estimated about $600,000. So most of that $340,000 that we were having each year was going to be put towards these projects. But I think we can do almost all of this work over the next 5 years and still keep a positive balance and enough if we had some kind of emergency. Our other big ticket items is HVAC, and those were 07, I believe, because I think that's what the last health, life, safety for all these units up here. So they have probably at least another 10 years of life in those, at least past 5 years. So I think all these projects are doable. It's just a matter of, following this schedule or not, so.
I jotted down a bunch of stuff. When I built built our house, I talked to a lot of people about heating and cooling, about the roofing, about the structure, integrity of materials, life expectancy of stuff, efficiency, cost, and then with what kind of money I had, we made decisions. And there's a lot to choose from here, and the house was simpler than what you guys are about doing here. I didn't have to deal with asbestos. With all these different options and all these different prices, like, you know, like, for me, the sky wasn't the limit, you know, had to come in with the budget. So for the money that we had, or budgeted, or that we have coming in, and for the life expectancy of some of these repairs, you know, I wouldn't call myself an expert at determining those things, but I think you guys know a lot more about it than I do. And probably some people around the table know a lot more about it than I do. What's the best bang for our buck?
Well, there's a couple things to play besides my dislike for those units hanging down. None of this was put in at the same time, so it was kind of piecemealed in. So 20 years ago we put a boiler, then 10 years ago or 14 years ago we put in air conditioning, and so each one of these units' life expectancy is not going to be the same. And so if we were to go and retrofit the system with like a hot water system, you would have to retrofit those air handlers. You'd have to put hot water coils in to replace the steam coils. But then you also have 14-year-old condensing units that are outside, and they have a life of 15 to 20.
Well, 20, yeah, 20 to 25
So,
years.
and you said $100,000?
Yeah, because the refrigerant use in them is being phased out because of the EPA, so you'd be replacing piping.
And is that each?
No, that's total. That's like
We had to
just do a direct replacement. Yeah.
So then, then in 5 years, we've got $100,000, but then we're still in the same position where now we've got, if we put hot water in 5 years, that's 5 years old, then we're retrofitting this. It just seems like we never have the same equipment for life, I don't know.
You know, it seems to me that anything that uses that refrigerant that's gonna expire probably not be one of our choices.
Well, that's the existing units that have that refrigerant. Anything new we put in would have modern
More expensive.
refrigerant.
Put in the old stuff.
But when is that going to, I mean, my sister-in-law helped her do the work, but figured out for her air conditioner, and they said that the stuff that they put in, that's it, there's no more of it.
So that's the R22, which has been phased out. They don't manufacture anymore. They reclaim it and have it stored so you can charge it if you need it, but they don't make any equipment that uses it anymore. And that's going to be a constant, just with regulations.
Yeah.
They try to give you 30-year gaps of refrigerant lease so that you can get the life out of the refrigeration equipment before they phase out.
Yeah, I'm looking at 3A, that the thing that looks a little heavy, and maybe there's a justified reason, but between the electric and controls are about 115,000. What's the driving force?
With electric and controls?
The electric's 95 and about 20 in controls.
That's just getting they're pulling new power to those locations, new feeders. They're bigger units than what's there now.
Right.
Tying the controls were, we have the building management system here, so tying all those controls into that system, that adds up. It'll take a whole lot to get $25,000 there for that wiring and programming.
Are they gonna be connected via Ethernet or some means?
Yes, they'll
So they'll
schedule it.
communicate, they'll have what, a PLC, or they're gonna do a micro?
It'll be a PLC. It'll be a PLC.
So we can program it, but we can have them program it, and make adjustments to the program as we need.
Correct.
Okay, you know what kind of PLC they run, standard?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't either, Mike.
I'm just curious.
Well, one of the other things we talked about was and we had pulled that option, was to have one large unit that would run both ducts. And one of the one of the problems was the amount of power that it was gonna take. We'd have to do all kinds of
Yeah,
electrical work.
yeah, the main distribution panel, electrical panel wouldn't support that, the breaker size that it would require, the amount of power that one single unit would draw, so you'd have to have an electrical upgrade.
But when you have two, they could program that, so most days, only one is run.
Yeah, it is.
And so you would not have to run both units, which should extend the lives of the units, plus it should be a lot more energy efficient to just run the one, just for graduation plays and things like that, or band stuff, where you'd have to really make sure it cools down. So.
Right,
They'll be VFD controlled by.
correct,
PLC.
single, yep.
Okay. Okay. And my main concern at the last meeting we had was making sure that they communicate well, so that, because what you don't wanna do either is you don't want it to go to a default that says, unit A always runs if we just need a little bit, because then you'll wear it out instead of trying to keep the life. of it
Right, you do
close.
a lead lag sequence where every week or 2 weeks, one is the leader, so it's gonna be,
Exactly,
yeah.
and you can do all that in the program, you just
Mhm.
gotta have capability, that's all.
Mhm.
I wanna make sure we have that.
And locations 1 and 2, there are 2 low rooftop units there right now above those areas, locker room and the trophy area. So we would be taking those off and have a VAV box, which would have its own electric read, give its own control there.
And no issues with the feed, so we don't have to upsize breakers, or we have the breaker capacity, both the power
Yes, for
back
those.
here and up here.
Yeah, it's from the shops up there is where the power's
They're
coming.
both fed from there?
Mhm.
So what about the, because I'm thinking distance, what about the unit we have back here, which is the shorter path, and do we have any capacity back here?
Well, I guess those 2 existing condensing units are fed from up here. I know we've always looked from this location.
One reason I'm asking is because per foot, where's your money's coming from, and so,
Right.
and I could be totally wrong, but it seems like the unit here would be a pretty good distance to travel, because you gotta come out, come across, and then over, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a straight shot.
I think we could reuse some of the conduit that was a portion of the way.
Oh, really, the size higher?
Yeah, yeah.
Mike, where are you talking about?
You got electrical room down in the south end, right? And you've got one over by the wood shop,
Yeah.
or metal shop.
Metal shop, yeah.
Is there a main panel in that,
I thought there was when we did our walk.
like a main service coming in for that addition,
Well, I don't know if it's the main,
It's not the main, but it's.
because we have power in our social workers closet too, but I think that all comes,
Right.
I don't know, and I could be wrong, but I thought
Yeah.
it all came from the metal shop and then went to some sub.
Because there's a power box on the ground out there, just right outside the building. And then there's a power room right inside the building, so I thought it was probably another feed, but I'm not positive.
But we could, we would look at that.
All the way on the south end, like where the. not
HVAC
boiler,
comes in.
HVAC room
Right.
is there.
There's a green transformer box out there, and there's electrical room on the south end. I don't know if it's close or not, but I think we need to, before we automatically pull from there, we ought to look at it.
Right, no, I agree.
We might save some money. It's all about the time of the owner, if that's what's driving the electrical. You got the drawings there, Mike?
I can't speak as much to the electrical side of things.
I realize some of it involves abatement and stuff that they can't have to do it, but I wasn't sure if there's anything that we can do.
Don't know. I mean, they could close all and cut pipes apart and things like
Right,
that.
but like that
in
probably
the
we can't do because of
boiler room.
abatement.
Because you would eliminate the entire boiler.
Right.
And take all the piping and all that out, so they would actually give them a little more room down there, but I guess they could.
Would that actually save us money?
That's,
I don't
well,
know.
yeah, and that's the other thing, and would it be enough? Yeah.
Depends on which pieces have they asbestos on.
I think they've taken care of everything downstairs. I don't remember there being any asbestos in the basement, in the boiler room.
Right.
I think they took care of that either when they put the boiler in or at some other time. I don't remember.
So what's the path to bring the boiler out, to get rid of the boiler?
Well, I guess we'd have to cut it up and bring it out to the
Yeah, that existing one. would-
courtyard, little pieces,
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay.
yeah.
So then does Dennis have that skill?
I mean,
Torch, you talking saws, or what are you thinking?
I would think torches, you don't always have to, that metal's not gonna be easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, how that sectional cast iron boiler, if it can come apart in a second, it might come apart in sections without
It's
having.
got flanges, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Since
I
it's
didn't, it
sectional.
didn't look like it when I was down there, but I.
Yeah, I'm trying to
I looked at it
remember.
one time.
and I'm not so sure that we have, and I don't know the size of torches that you would need if we would have that big of a torch. I know we have torches in the shop that they can cut metal, but I don't know.
Or else you have to.
I don't think we have a plasma cutter. I don't think we have a plasma cutter, but I think there's just,
Very destructive.
you get angry one day when you go down there with the hammer.
I mean, my personal opinion is I think we should go down this path, but I'm like
I
everybody
agree.
else, I think we need to figure out how to save as many dollars as we can through that process.
Absolutely. This seems like the
This is
best
a
plan in
long
long term. I mean, it works out, I think, for the school best, but it is very expensive.
Sure. And the other thing is, once the abatement's done, it's just cast iron pipe.
Right.
So, and it doesn't have to come out right this second. So I guess we could, if we had to, hold a deconstruction of the boiler out of the project and then
Just
have
abandon
our
it.
guys
Yeah, just
do
leave
it
it
over
there.
time. Do what?
You could and just leave it sit there.
It won't be in the way
Just-
for the new stuff. That's
It's
not
not-
no real concern.
I like the idea of just letting them do it over time.
That's quite a bit of money we would save
Yeah,
in
we'd save.
demolition.
Now, what I would say, I don't want to do, is I would prefer to get the piping in the dangerous areas out of it.
Oh, like the height of the gym,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
We just need to get that done. The stuff that they can get to fairly easy with whatever list we got available, tools we have, yeah, we might have to save a little bit there.
Well, that actually brings up a nice little point too, because we're gonna do a walkthrough tomorrow afternoon with the asbestos companies. And, instead of having them also take the pipe out, we could just have them abate it as far as in the classroom and in the stairwell, which is reachable, and then we can come back later on.
Anyway, we can whittle it down some, you know.
Absolutely.
What, did you look at, see what the cost was? Did they have that broken down with
Which one?
the demo?
The asbestos is only showing 50, so.
I added 30, on this sheet, I tried to go through and add, the asbestos to all the projects, so we were kind of comparing apples to apples.
But I thought the number on one of the other sheets was
It's
like
90.
91.
The estimate we got from environmental consultant was 91, and so I went through and just kind of made all the asbestos abatement 91.
Except for on this one.
Well,
Yeah, he's on
that,
60.
that 91 was for the, trophy room, what's the trophy room called?
Hall of Fame,
Oh,
yeah,
that
right.
that included flooring.
Flooring,
Ceiling,
ceiling, there's a
ceiling.
pipe in there, yeah,
The other 60 was for the removal of that pipe in the gym,
yeah.
Okay,
the pipe. Yeah.
all right, so
Right.
that's something,
So 3A only takes care of the pipe in the gym, not the other stuff.
well,
Well,
it's not take care of the floor, the ceiling.
it depends on, that's correct, yeah, 3A, just the base price. I ended up breaking
So
out.
is the floor and the ceiling somewhere in these other years and in these numbers?
What happened to the other 31,000?
That's, I put it into the price into here, so I added it in, and I think I came up with, because what was do you have the price, what the original price was for the 3A on the ground?
186,637.
Yeah, I have it at 720, so I added the extra money in
Okay.
for the abate,
On this page.
yeah, so this thing that's up here, right, this is up here, I've got this at, and I think it's up higher. I put it in 720.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm trying to cover the abatement. Which I guess, Mike, that is a question I had for you, I might as well ask now. When we do this health, life, safety abatement, will we include the abatement for the HVAC with the HVAC project, or will we include all the abatement with the health, life, safety amendment we're working on
We
now?
will include all the cost of the abatement in the, when we do the new health, life, safety amendment,
For the whole thing?
for all the abatement.
Okay.
Now, what won't be factored in yet is if you go ahead with the abatement in the Hall of Fame, but you don't go ahead with any HVAC work now, you still gotta put flooring and ceiling and lights and everything back in that
Okay.
Hall of Fame area. Cause that, right now, there's a number in with Tyson's overall number to put that kind of stuff back into the Hall of Fame. But if you don't do the HVAC, you'll still have to do something. I guess you wouldn't have to put any floor in, you wouldn't have to put ceiling in, but you probably need to hang lights in there a piece.
Well, we could probably, I don't know, we can dismantle that drop ceiling and store it and have Dennis and the crew put it back in along the lights. I mean, the flooring, it's not necessarily really a public place, it's, they use it for
Right.
weight room and things like that, put dots on the floor anyway. So, I don't know that we would need to put any extensive flooring in.
Right.
So the way you've got it set up under 3A, you've got 720 under the budget, you're showing 686, 637, 770. That does or does not include that room, based on the picture of the diagram. So we definitely, okay, that is definitely what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Location one is the,
Location one is Hall of Fame. That's on the Hall of Fame.
So 720 includes all that. That's 686.
And again, I mean, these are estimates, you know, I mean,
oh, I understand.
so it may come in, and it came in last time, I think, a lot higher than we thought. So, but again, the board, you know, we can't make decisions now, but the board has the final option to say yes or no when it all comes in. So, and maybe we talk about the timeline too, if we're looking at these units, how many weeks or months are we, for ordering and delivering all that?
I would allow 3 months for reviewing and ordering and then getting them delivered. So we should get this out to bid in February, would be for any summer projects,
Okay.
what we typically shoot for.
Because I've actually started having conversations with coaches about start to plan your summer activities off campus. Because there's a good chance that most of the gym and the Hall of Fame and stuff are gonna be off limits. So they're very happy with me.
It will be after it's done.
You're doing it, so you know.
That's just it.
Yeah.
Now, I put together a rough timeline, and if we have a bid opening on February 8th, and then you approve to award the contracts at the February 15th board meeting, then you could conceivably have the units here by June 1st,
Okay.
which they wouldn't need to be here by June 1st, but you probably wouldn't want to go have them
Well,
here in
remember,
August, you'd want them to have it.
You'd want your abatement done.
You can't always be worried about creep anyway.
Yeah.
But you're wanting your abatement done prior to that in. So here's one of the things, we have graduation in there, and is there a way to work around to keep those units in there working until after graduation?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we wouldn't allow anybody to start any work until after you were done with that
Okay.
space.
That's what, May 20th? Graduation.
But then we're still waiting on the health, life, safety amendment paperwork, which I don't know how long that's gonna take, up to the state.
Right.
But so we would wanna put the bids out, to put this out for bid probably first of the year.
Right, if you wanna go with the schedule that I just proposed, you would advertise on about January the 18th.
Okay,
And I think we could bump that back a month and it not be a big issue, but like he's saying, you just wanna be worried about
I don't know about
if there's
school.
any kind of delays anywhere.
right,
I mean, you don't wanna have these units showing up August 12th,
right.
you know, and then at the last minute trying to get them all hooked up and set in place either. It would be better to have them here early than.
Sure, we could just store them out there.
Right.
You're gonna,
The contract will store them.
you're gonna want them here for you to save with the other system.
Mhm.
All right.
So then it's probably important that, you know, this month's meeting, if we can come up with a direction,
I think that's what I would like to
That's
see.
what I would.
so.
That's good. I would like to have it on the agenda so we can try to do a vote to get the packages going.
Makes sense.
It's better to be ahead than this time, especially.
Is there any more discussion been on the location of these units, if we've chosen the roof, opposed to the ground, or?
Well, I guess the difference between, I mean, those two bids are close together. They're $2,000 difference if you put them on the roof as opposed to ground.
Yeah,
As far as, well, let me ask you this, what about, you know, we have to go in and beef up the joist, so you're talking about a little more manpower,
Labor.
right, time to do that,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So you have to figure that in. And so you really couldn't do any of that, at least the work in, where am I pointing at? Probably over there someplace, where it's right over the ramp
Yeah.
area, so wouldn't do that till school's out. So-
Okay, I didn't realize this one was one had to be beefed up. I thought it was the one on the other side.
All three
Yeah,
had to.
All
Oh,
three.
okay.
All three had to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those two just seem to be a little less.
So, in the interest of less time and labor and hopefully saving ourselves money, and maybe we ought to go with the ground units.
so
Less,
that,
less complications, less worry
yeah,
about.
they could be doing demolition, fabricating the ductwork in the gym while they're doing the structural work there.
Exactly.
And the units wouldn't show up until they have all the ductwork done anyway. So,
There's no potential, just for long-term, no potential for, any kind of issues with this roof or anything like that, with them being up there,
Not really, no.
with the building that.
In the industrial world, that's.
They go on the roofs all the
Okay.
time.
And that follows all the earthquake, all those
Right.
regulations and stuff like that?
Yeah, that would be awful, earthquake and then,
Yeah.
air conditioning.
I just-
I don't, honestly, I don't know, I don't really have an opinion on which is better or not. My only
Do you have
thing
an
is,
opinion, as people who work this
There-
stuff all the time?
Well, most of the time they go on the roof.
yeah. You're gonna have, on the roof, they're gonna have less exposed ductwwork outside, so.
Right.
So here's some of the
Energy
advantages.
savings for
When you go on
that.
the roof, you
Yeah.
don't get as much debris in them. You don't get as dirty. The
Less
noise
chance of
goes up.
vandalization.
Less chance of vandalism. There's a lot of reasons.
Okay.
All of
A lot
this,
less chance of
everything we put
vandalism.
in was, we tried to put
Okay.
on the roof. I put substations on the roof. We put everything on the roof. That way people, and
Mess with-
dust and debris don't get in there.
so that just makes it probably a little more time crunch, or it probably extends the construction a little bit in the summer. Because you're just not pouring a pad and doing all the work outside, now you have to come inside and do work.
But you can do multiple functions at one
One
time.
time, right.
Sure, but we have to wait till after school's out to do any
Separate
interior
inside.
work. And then I guess we'd have to clear out the weight room to get into that, because that was the other option, right? Was location
Correct.
2,
Mhm.
so you'd have to clear out the weight room. I'm assuming you would not want, you know the racks we have in there, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, so we would have to get those racks out of the way, I'm assuming.
At least to the side, yeah.
If you go with location where you do the options with 1 and 2. Because you only need 2 of these units.
Right, but I
So-
thought 2 and 3 was the cheaper.
It is, according to you.
Right.
Well, you're not dealing, that didn't have the abatement. Option one had all the abatement of that
Right.
Hall of Fame. That was 91,000.
Which you're gonna do that anyway.
So it
Regardless.
no, it doesn't matter then.
So 1 and 2, you're saying, so we could basically take $90,000
So we
off
only-
that, and it ends up being about this.
We only
basically
improved the $45,000 work, right, for abatement to this point?
Well, but the other abatement was gonna get done with the
With the project.
HVAC.
But just
We didn't approve anything. We did not make a
Well,
motion.
no, we sent it out to get the bid.
Right,
Well, get the paperwork started to get the bid.
yes, but we can, when they do the walkthrough, we can put all those numbers together.
I guess my thing is we gotta get a realistic, based on the conversation we just had, we didn't know how much that 720 goes up. You match your 5-year plan. If we have to do the Hall of Fame separate, then the weight room.
Money was everything related with the HVAC.
That's the main good, Within the generator? So, so the generator's piping, so we have too much in there. We have double
That was
counted
just the
60,000.
gel.
Yeah, that was.
One option,
Yeah,
option 1 and 2.
And then there's an additional 45,000
Yeah, I didn't know that 60,000.
in the budget,
That's 60.
so that's $105,000.
It's just.
We got a $45,000 bid plus.
So this is 800.
Yeah,
Here's
here's their,
first two would come out $60,000.
yeah, so this is what they had. They had 91,000, this is from environmental consultant for gymnasium piping and gym lobby area.
So that's the weight
So
room
is that
slash
covering
hall
that
thing.
then?
What I'm assuming,
Sounds like it.
yeah.
We may not be.
So, I mean, I think I'm fairly close,
Okay,
but again, we're gonna, you know,
all right.
we're hoping it
Still
comes in
covers what
close to
we're saying.
that. But correct me if I'm wrong, did we not have two different bid options last time that we thought maybe made it a little more difficult? for
Right, they're
bidders?
putting together their two bids, two completely separate bids, the contractors are, so, which we typically don't do and they don't like.
No,
So,
not at all.
so if you guys, what I'm hearing is, you're thinking the two roof locations would be preferable? So the hall, I'm sorry, the weight room and over here where this other one's at.
Is that the best
Three.
ductworks arrangement then?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's 2 and 3?
Yes.
2 and 3.
Yes. Yeah. And I actually stood out in the parking lot yesterday and I can't see, you have a hard time seeing that unit that's up there now. And I know that the other one's gonna be fairly big, so.
Two more detailed questions, so the stuff that you've got so far, is that painted steel, is that galvanized structure, what is it? The unit itself?
The unit
The
itself?
unit itself is just a pre-finished, factory painted steel.
The ductwork is just, would be just a silver
It's-
ductwork, or is it?
It was painted, it's painted. We have that all under architecture.
Right, we painted it because we gotta go up the side of the wall, and that was the main reason we were painting it.
And then the gym, it's, I forget what color.
Well,
Maybe blue.
I can tell you what color mine is.
What do you guess? Okay, just some questions. I think whenever we did affordability, I think we got on that. But it's gonna, it would raise the price substantially.
And then, I know we're pushing, but we had also talked about, you could have a skeleton structure on the ductwork with some kind of sock on it, you'd mentioned.
Well, the duct socks is an option, it's a fabric duct system. That was one of the VE items that the contractor had submitted, that's used, you can get it in any, basically any color you want, but fabric
Your
duct.
thoughts on that?
It's getting,
I'm getting head shaking from both sides.
Yeah.
My peripheral vision is still good.
It doesn't look as
It
good.
doesn't sound like a good idea.
Does not look as good?
I don't think so, actually.
It
Just-
deteriorates.
So in Columbia, we've got it in the 2 elementary schools, they just put it in, I didn't do it, but somebody else did.
Okay, then Columbia's good.
I only use it,
Yeah, so,
I only use it for temporary.
Yeah.
That's the only
I
time
was
I
gonna
use
say,
Alright.
it doesn't seem like it would be, I mean,
you
fabric
have
wouldn't
noise
be a
issues, cause it
long-term
can
solution.
pop, I mean, when it fills up with, when it fills up with air, it'll, it
Just like balloons.
fills up the air, goes
You
in.
like that guy waving as you drive by?
Yeah,
Pretty much, yeah.
Something like that.
yeah.
Okay.
This is temporary, something from, especially not much for this kind of money.
I was gonna say, yeah.
So the way it's written in the board packet is I have a motion with just basically a blank where it says option whatever. And so what we'll do is, if that's what we're thinking, I'll go ahead and put the 3A with locations at 2 and 3.
And just double check your numbers and make sure that, understand we're getting it out, but make sure the math still works towards your 5-year plan. In my opinion,
Yeah. I agree.
that's critical.
But I also think we can probably expect lower than that, especially if we're thinking about doing some of that demo over time.
See, that's our ace in the hole. So if it comes in higher, that may drive us towards that for sure.
Okay. You guys got any more questions for Tyson and Mike? Mike and Tyson, How did I not think of that earlier? Well, you guys are welcome to stay.
I'll be staying.
Okay,
It might be in
and I know you traveled a little bit today, correct?
yeah, I was in Charleston and Champaign,
Oh, that's
Oh,
it.
good.
so.
I appreciate it,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys.
Appreciate your
Thank
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Asbestos.
Okay. There is a small little package that environmental consultants, this one right here. I don't think I have anything, but, like Mike had said earlier, we did approve priority 2 to move forward with priority 2 and have the health, life, safety amendment written up, as you heard earlier. I guess it'll all be written up as one asbestos project for all 3. So the 91 and 45, what's that work out to be? Like 130, 136. Yeah, you don't count.
Yeah.
So, and both of those were in that plan. And then priority 3 and priority 4. Priority 3 is the big project where we go through the central hallway and take care of all that little 9-inch tile. And it looks like there's some stair tread and things like that. That's the 274. And then priority 4 with some other tiles. So both of those projects are included in that budget. And again, I'm just making guesses of where we would take the money from. But on one of these, I'm not sure, priority 3, oh, I may have went way over on that. I put 250 on each. All right, if I add 250 and 250, is that over 274? So, that's good. I made a mistake in the positive. So that, both of those are included in the 72 is, did I? Oh, where's that at?
Yeah, it should have been 274 instead of 250 then.
Well, it's 250 and 250. What I did is I split it between 2 funds, so we're in good shape. So I'll correct that. So, anyway, it basically, it's kind of set up so that we can attack some of these projects along the way, and then eventually to try to get this as asbestos-free as possible over the next however many years. So I know I'm not really asking for any motions at the board meeting or any action, because we've already, that'll happen when we approve the health, life, safety amendment. I don't know if anybody had any questions.
No, I mean, if what we believe is true, then 3 years we have it out.
which
You
is
said it wasn't under the small
It's
gym.
been here so long.
Right, and Mike, I don't know if you
Yeah,
wanna,
it's not under there.
Mike and Dennis went down there and looked, and both from the manufacturer, the way that they install a floor, depending on whether there's a tile underneath or not. Ours was done the way that it would not have tile underneath, and then the inspection under one of the, was it the electrical plate or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know what used to be there, but there's an area where you can look and see that rubber floor, and you can kind of lift it up and see underneath it, and there's no tile underneath it.
And we did go back, or we are gonna go back, environmental consultants, I talked to Jeff Faust and asked if they had looked above the ceiling tile, which they had not, so they sent the guy out, and there is pipe above the ceiling tile in Wittenar's room, so they're gonna include that in the inspection tomorrow. Include that, so that 45 may be a little higher because of that pipe. But,
Is everybody dealing with this? I mean, like, every school district, I mean, that's just our condition.
well, it's the time
From
that's
what was okay
building was
before,
built.
but not okay anymore.
Yeah, every
It's
school
not just
district
schools.
that's
Yeah,
older, built in the 50s or 60s, it's
Everybody's
pretty
got it.
common, yeah.
that was,
Any building, period. really.
And these
School.
tile, like, you know, it's not the popular thing to say, but these tiles are fine as long as they don't break. And once they break and the stuff gets into the air, that's when you have issues.
yeah.
Now Dennis is gonna go and get certified, and he can do, I think it's up to a 3 foot by 3 foot. I think that's what it is, where if they have a tile that breaks, before we get to it, he can go ahead and he has a training he can prepare it. So, and I know there's some that are around some door jams, I think he said, that might be cracked, that he'll have to repair. So,
Thank goodness there's a fix for everything.
Basically, at the end of this 5-year, we've got in both the, what is WC,
working cash.
working cash and health life safety, we'll have $100,000 more than what you show here because of that 250 instead of 150.
Plus, we,
I
we
don't
got a lot
have
of
more money
companies.
than I thought I was gonna have.
I'm supportive.
Oh, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, extra Christmas presents, is what I'm saying.
No. We haven't hit the expensive one yet.
Yeah,
Anybody got any more questions about the expenses and the direction?
no, it's awesome.
Wait, the HVAC wasn't the expensive one?
Okay.
No, roof.
Well,
Probably not over.
no, not overall.
Yeah.
We're talking about the roof. All right, so then,
Phone.
you wanna do the phone or the roof?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead and do the roof.
It's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so, where, are we saying? No.
It's got Dennis Thomas' name on it.
I didn't spell it. All right, so this is, you've got a big, long packet, that was in there, and it has a breakdown of all the different roofs and
This is from Tremco.
Tremco.
Yep.
And most of our roofs are Tremco. I shouldn't say most, I think over half of our roofs are Tremco. And so they came out, and Mike, jump in whenever you want, because I know enough to be dangerous to be able to figure that out.
Keep going.
But, so they came out, they did an inspection of all of our roofs, looked at, I knew you would want one.
Well, she just
Well,
used
we
this
sold
a bit.
these for a while, but the transfer part's not been nice.
Is it, and I can get,
That's okay.
I just didn't wanna
Just
print that
always-
entire
I'm
packet
gonna
out.
take this forward.
But it has a breakdown of all the roofs, what is going on. There is, and I thought I had it on here. But. So here's the whole docket. It's up on the screen behind me. So this is a picture of the roof, all the different parts that are broken down. And, there are a couple roofs that need to be, so like this is the south end. So they tell you how long they think it has left. I will tell you that the south end, when they built it, it's a concrete roof, because it was gonna be a concrete floor if we ever went up 2 stories. But they said it's pulling away from the edges, and One of these tells us what the life expectancy is here 3 to 5 years. But, let me go way down to the end. Here we go. So this is both, it shows what's in red that they think is pretty important to do within the next couple of years, and then it moves away from there. So those F and D in the picture, those are the little roofs over walkways or stairwells. So the F is the stairwell that comes out of the gym going towards Bevel Street, and D is actually above the stairwell that goes up to the home side. That's where those two roofs are at. They're real small little roofs. A is the south end, and then actually we had a fairly long conversation about the garage, which we can talk a little bit about, which I may have actually included in there. But so a couple things with this. One, they are basically like a roof management company where they oversee the repairs and replacement. And I can't remember the right term now, but they are a company, I think I put it in here, that have, what is that? The AEPA, Association of Educational Purchasing Agencies. So they basically use that and they can bid out all of these products and get the best pricing, I guess, for the roofs, and they use local contractors. But one of the things they talked about is a care package or a care warranty, where it's a 5-year warranty. It's about $62,000, where they will basically take care of all the repairs on the roof, except for replacement and acts of God and things like that, for 5 years. I have talked with a couple superintendents. One district said no, they didn't want it, felt it was probably money they could have spent in just individual repairs. Another company says Tremco does all the roofs, they take care of everything. We they come in and do everything. So, I don't know, Mike, do you have much dealings or would like to put your 2 cents in?
Well, they're not gonna do anything for free, so, I mean, they're counting on, I think they go up and they do an inspection, which they've already done here on your roof, and then they pretty much figure out what they think it's gonna need in the next 5 years, and that's where they come up with their price.
Yeah. And if you go through this, and I'm not sure how much of you guys went through, they'll show pictures of the different things that are wrong with the roof. So let me try to find some of the things he pointed out. So this picture, this wall seams need sealed. This is the little knee wall that's between the central wing and the new hallway. So on the left-hand side, that black roof is the new hallway. And so what, according to him, Joe, the company that put it in did not put enough layers in, that they require more layers, so they'll come in and they'll put extra layering and extra sealing on there. There's a couple spots. This big one here where it says this new vermastic and rock. He says that was installed incorrectly, according to him. This is the water leak that we had at the beginning of the year over the English classroom. And he says what they need to do is to pull that all out, put in the right substrate, and then put the rock over on top, just like the rest of the roof. Trying to remember from our conversation.
What do they call acts of God? I mean, rain is an act of God.
Tree falls through the roof,
Okay.
tornado hits the school, they're not gonna cover that.
Okay, I just wanna know what that definition is,
Yeah.
cause it seems like a pretty broad definition.
And I don't, not surprisingly, I don't have a lot of experience on working with this. That's why I reached out to a couple contractors, a couple superintendents. And Mike, I'm assuming there are other companies that do the same thing.
Yes, there are.
But is there a benefit because we have mostly Tremco roofs, or is it, like somebody can work on a Dodge like they work on a Chevy?
As long as this roof that's up there now isn't still under warranty, then yeah, you can have anybody
Or they're not?
work on it.
That's the thing, they're not under warranty.
Maybe we should get some more bids. And some sort of maintenance plans, but same kind of thing.
More options.
I'd like to understand a little more about A, and the total replacement. You said this is concrete, and they're saying a total replacement?
Yeah, what I remember him saying is that the roofing material is shrinking away from the edges. And so, in order to fix it, they'd have to replace it. It's a 96, so it's a, what's that, 21 years? 21-year-old roof.
Right. It's pretty common for that rubber, when it's loose laid like that, with the gravel, to shrink and pull away from the edges. But what they can do is pull the gravel away from the edges and patch in a strip all the way around and put the gravel back. And as long as the roof membrane out in the middle underneath the gravel is still good, that's a viable option. And a lot of times when it's underneath that gravel, you can probably get 30 years out of it, because it's never exposed to the UV, because it's underneath that layer of rock. So unless it's leaking out there in the middle or it's starting to deteriorate, I don't think it's something that you would need to replace the whole roof right away.
And there's no visible leaks in classrooms?
Not in the south end, no. Not that I recall.
Scare tactics.
And not that we have to, I'll just keep talking about some of the issues that we have. One of the things we had talked a little bit about was the garage. That roof is about to the end of its life. It only has a year or two left, according to them. But that is a structure that we probably need to kind of think about what to do with it. I would hate to let it get in such disrepair that it's damaged. Right now, all it is storage, and it's, what's that?
Lots of trophies.
There's a lot of, yeah,
We should sell
all
them.
those trophies we threw away, they're actually in the bus garage. But there's a lot of things in there that we could probably get rid of, and then depending on how much we wanna spend, we could repurpose that building for a lot of different things. We talked one time about using it as a locker room for the athletic complex. We talked about a weight room, we talked about auto shop, we talked about if we had to do classrooms, we could turn it into probably a couple classrooms at least. So, it's probably something we need to keep an eye on.
Is it plugged out?
I mean, there is plumbing in there, but not as far as restrooms, you'd have to put all that in. The windows are in very bad shape in the back, so we'd have to take care of that. So that's, to me, kind of an interesting project to think about over the next couple of years of what we can do with that.
Just the overall integrity of that building, looking at the siding below the windows and so forth, is that, just old enough to fix or?
Oh, it's very fixable. I mean, you're gonna have to put new windows in, you're gonna have to take out all those garage doors, or most of the garage doors, and put something else in. You'd have to put HVAC in. Yep,
That's on high school property, not grade school.
we bought that from the grade school.
Okay.
Oh, and that's a brick building?
It is a brick building, yeah. And that brings up, Mike said tuck pointing. One of the things they talked about was going through and tuck pointing the entire building, and they estimated $125,000. It,
Seems kind of low.
I don't know.
You take it.
I'm not sure how much it is to do
Well, I will tell you, we were in the day Dennis was doing the work in the courtyard, and I looked out and that whole side is in bad shape. You can see a lot of that mortar has been deteriorated. But I am absolutely not opposed to looking and talking to some more people. Maybe I can get a name or two from somebody that I might have a phone number.
Has glass breakage been an issue with this, because there's an awful whole wall of glass, but has that ever been a problem? Not really?
No.
Okay. thinking for grade school kids to be walking by,
Yeah.
and high school kids, that's
I'm
kind of.
getting ideas
And
right
I,
now.
and I don't know,
Don't put it out there.
right,
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's been some replacement of the glass over time for different reasons. But it's a, I think it's 4 bays with the, 5th bay is the janitors. Like right now, the football team goes and they clear the janitor's garage out and they put the chairs in there, and that's what they use. And then we make the visitors team go to the gym. Try to wear them out. It's not working. But, so anyway, there's a lot of different uses for that building. And I would hate for us not to keep it, or at least look at it.
Keep it in some kind of repair.
And the roof is probably the first thing that we gotta take care of. We start getting water leaking in.
Where's the power for that, do you know?
I don't know.
Since we bought it?
Comes from the grade school.
They're ringing our bell for years.
I could find it.
And here's the thing, sometimes I don't wanna know, because it might be worse to know.
I'm afraid that one might be. We bought it from them, there's a good chance it's being powered from their side.
Bring power.
We do much with it.
There's only about 5 light bulbs in there, I think.
I know,
Not a whole lot.
we tried to do something HVAC, all this other stuff.
Well, I think you have to do it a little bit at a time, so they don't notice the gradual rise in their power. Hopefully they don't watch this video.
They're gonna need a larger feed too.
Hopefully, yeah, so, anyway, so actually, if you're all right, Mike, I know I've been putting you on the line here. If you, maybe I'll give you a call and you can give me some other folks I can
Yeah,
talk to.
I can get you some, any masonry contractor really.
Well, I'm just talking about the roofs too.
Oh, the roofs, yeah.
That,
Well, I don't even know what kind of roof is up there on that building.
I'm talking about all of our roofs.
Oh, the
To
roof
talk
that
to
you
a
got
company kinda like Tremco, that
Yeah,
maybe we get another idea. But now, my understanding is that all these would have to be bid anyway. And so they basically manage all the bids to individual companies, so any company you brought in would do the same thing. To me, the biggest thing is this maintenance, whether or not the maintenance is in line or not. And then, of course, at that price, I'm assuming we'd have to bid that out anyway.
right.
Did you talk to a couple more superintendents too? Get more feedback?
Yes, I could.
You get 2, you get one on one side, one on the other, you're gonna get.
Yeah, I talked to somebody outside.
The other question with the roofs would be, do you wanna stay with the type of roof that you have now? Or
We have
switch to something else?
multiple kinds. We've got the rock,
And that's what Tremco likes, is the built-up roof with the rocks.
and then we have,
The
like,
rubber.
over the ramp, the new hallway, the gym, that's all rubberized roof.
Right.
I think, I'm not sure on the other side. I'm not familiar with the north end as much.
Yeah, and the life of those types of roofs, what are, what's the last thing of those?
What's that, membranes?
20 to 30?
Yeah, you can get a good
Yeah.
20, 30.
Yeah.
You usually get a warranty for 15, 20.
Yeah, anything that we put on in bid is got a 20-year
Yeah,
warranty on it.
I like the membrane
And it's a-
myself.
That's what we prefer, that's what we put on everything.
Because the
new.
other ones, the rock can move around, things happen.
And I know we just did a bunch of work with the roof when we put the air conditioners out. Pretty sure that's correct.
I think so, yeah.
For the central, so. So I will look into that. And we're saving money right and left.
It's just stays dry.
Your response. You can spend it on other things.
I know, there's stuff to spend it on.
Exactly.
Speaking of spending it on, you wanna talk about the phone?
Yeah.
Or do you want me to talk about the phone?
Do you folder on the phone?
Do what?
Do you folder on the phone?
We don't. No. So, I think I wrote a little bit about it in the write-up. Our bell system, I'll kind of go piece by piece. The bell, well, the PA clock bell system that we had, was in the old office and it kind of died. I was administrator, so it was in the last, how many years has that been? 10 or 11 years that it died. And so a couple things that we did, we put a different bell system in, and it's now a tone instead of a bell, but it's run on a computer that runs Windows XP, and Angie's cringing over there. And so my understanding when talking with Jeff is that that system cannot be upgraded. So whenever it dies, it dies. There's no upgrading. The clocks were part of the original system, so, and this was what we had. So we had the speaker and a clock in each room. When the system died, the clocks were no good. So instead of spending the money for a new system, we just went and bought all these atomic clocks. I'm worried about the radioactivity, but they tell me it's not an issue. But, so we bought these, and they, at least these are close at the same time. They're just not very efficient. How many of your classrooms do the clocks?
The band room is really bad.
Yeah.
It goes from 45 minutes to like 5 minutes off. This is the only second hand that works in the building, maybe. And the other ones, they all vary. Like that one's
So
one
the
off.
clock, it's not a very good system. Jeff went around with one of the companies, and they actually played music, plugged music in over the speakers, and found out that all of our speakers are still in good shape, and they're probably original to the building, which is good. So when you can put in these systems, and they basically handle all those three features. They handle the bell, they handle a clock, and they handle, what am I missing? No, not the phone, the paging. And the phone's different. That's a different system. So that's all right. So what we would like to do is we would like to look at having somebody come in and are bidding out replacement of the bell, paging, clock system. And one of the things that schools are doing, and you can tell me, you know, a lot of schools, but we've heard is they're starting to put clocks kind of dropping down the ceiling, so when you're walking down the hallway, you can see the clock, see the time. Put them in the classroom. What I've been told is the speaker will actually work as a two-way speaker, that when they open up the channel, that you can actually talk back and forth, which kind of blew me away. I didn't think that, at least that's what they're telling me. But, and then the bell system, all that would be integrated together, one complete system. Jeff also found out the other day that we're probably running way too little power through our speakers, that the amplifiers we have can't handle it, and that's why our speakers sound so terrible. But when they pulled off a bunch of the speakers, they sounded great. The new system gets rid of all the amplifiers, and it's all built into the system. So that's one of the things we'd like to look at. Getting prices anywhere, estimates anywhere from about $50,000 to $70,000 for the whole system. We have most of the speakers, we have most of the wiring. So that number is high, because we were told $20,000 for wiring to wire the whole thing, but we think we can reuse most of our wiring. The biggest thing is you can't bring the wires together and then, I guess, go to one single spot and then go off. They all have to be kind of home runs back to the system. Jeff said they found a whole bunch of wires that looked like a rat's nest in the teacher's work area, which used to be the old office, and that's where the drop down was for the system, was on that wall. And he says it's just a rat's nest up there for these wires. They just patched it all together to get it working. So, so what they would do is they would come in and they would bid that. Now, one of the companies that we talked to, you can either buy the systems outright, or you can basically lease them. And if you lease the systems, of course, overall you're paying a little bit more money, but then they do what they call a, I'm trying to remember the term they use, but basically it's kind of a rebate program depending on the year that you're in the system. So like the first 24 or 12 months, or whatever it is, you can get so much money that you can turn around and get new products, and then it increases over the time. So you can kind of lease it. or you can buy it outright. So the information we're getting from the company, and it's actually who we use our phones with now, CTS, is their recommendation is you buy the system, you don't lease the paging system. Because it's a system you put in, it's gonna stay in for 20 years. So then we talk about the phones are old, they're outdated, they're in crazy places. A lot of the hardware itself is all broken, they're all our phones, we don't pay a service to have them. What we would like to do is bring the phones in, and then those would all hook up through a computer system where you can actually, and they're not IP phones.
They're not VoIP phones?
Not IP over?
No. There was that option,
Okay.
but talking with Jeff didn't feel like we really needed that we wouldn't use that technology. Again,
That's kind of where everybody's going.
Well, but if the other option's less expensive, then.
well, and they
then
said that
makes
most
sense.
of the schools don't use that because it has tons of options and the schools just don't use it.
Right.
The office may use it
And
with
the
all
other
the
thing-
different calling options, but not the classroom.
I was gonna say, the other thing with that is, those phones, they have software that's, the companies, you'd have to upgrade those more often also because the phone, they don't support them for, it's just like Windows, you know, after so long, they stop supporting it and then something breaks or it's not working right and they're just like, your problem.
Well, and when we
So
talked
it's
with the
kind of-
company, they said that, they would lease that. They would not recommend that you purchase the phone. They would recommend that you would lease the
I
phone.
have to know what kind of phone they're doing if it's not a VoIP
Oh,
phone.
if I could find a piece of paper, I could
Yeah,
tell.
today as well.
And Jeff said he'd be happy to come in and talk a lot more clearly about this than me.
Was it in the packet? I
It was not.
I was gonna
It
say, I
was
didn't
not,
see it.
because all I had was two prices, and I'm looking for them. I didn't hand those to you, did I? Were we talking about that before?
I didn't even try. You didn't hand me anything.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. So the intercom, well, this one works out to be about 80,000, but there's 20,000 in wiring. So that would fall into 50 to 70, but then, depending on the program, it's called CTS Care, because it's through CTS. So the first 24 months, you could, $15,000. You could get merchandise for $15,000. Then it's $34,000, then it's $42,000 after 48 months. But then the phone system's about $35,000. But they recommend that you lease that, and the lease would be about a little under $2,200 a month to lease the phones. But what we'd like to do is to be able to just bid out both of these.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about,
There's a lot of phones in this building now.
Yeah,
And a lot
I
of
mean,
places
they
they
had-
probably need phones and don't have them.
almost 70 phones in the building.
2,200 a month sounds a little high.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
26.4 a year.
That's what you said.
How about a little under $1,200 a month? Which is still probably high, but it's
Still high.
yeah,
But still less than 2,200.
it is. You would think I didn't know anything about numbers. But, so anyway, what we'd like to do is we'd like to put together a bid spec and then have that bid and get a price
I think
for
it's a good
both
idea.
separate.
I think it's a safety issue. If not all the classrooms or all the teachers have access to phones and intercom and things like that. I think it's a safety issue. It's definitely a good idea.
So that's something I'm asking you guys to do at the meeting.
I'd say put it on the agenda.
Are there enough vendors to, 3 or 4 or 5 to get bids from, or are we gonna get?
Well, we talked to two,
a couple?
so I'm sure there's others.
There's lots
Yeah.
Okay.
of them coming.
We get prices both ways, I would think, just like you did here, I would think. purchase versus lease on both of them. See where the numbers shake out. They're basically at $1,200 a month, they're figuring every 3 years they can put new stuff in and we pay for it. 35,000, that's basically what they're saying.
Is there any networking with some of these newer schools that are being built in terms of what they have and how happy people are with them?
Oh, yeah, just got, they have a kind of an email
Okay.
group that they email stuff back and
Get
forth.
feedback on it.
Yeah. And one of the companies is on, that we currently use is on this side of the river, and then the other one we talked to is on the other side of the river, so there's companies out there.
So where does that fit into your,
It's not in there,
that's what you were gonna say.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it would,
Next year, we have $200,000 you
And then
can
maybe
expect
what-
on that budget.
Well,
Maybe what drives us to lease too.
well, and it's, you know, yeah, I was all thrilled about that 218,000, well, it's gonna be gone quicker than you blink your eyes as I stare out those old lockers. So,
When you do think about lockers though, let's think about them. I think just kinda like we're talking about the roof and the asbestos and everything else, let's figure out a plan where we can do so many at a time, and go across the school and do them all, but do them over time instead of one. I can't imagine what it costs to change
To
them.
the entire
The
school.
band room, all the halls, all the locker rooms for the gym.
well, they don't really have lockers.
Well, they were looking at
I know,
independently their own,
I know,
and, yeah.
yeah, but they. But they do need them badly. Those are all-
What are you talking
the
about?
particle board things.
Just the
all
band room lockers.
I mean, it's no different than the rest of the facility, we owe it to them.
Right, absolutely.
You should have to make lockers that can fit two of them.
And that, I think that'd probably play right in with the asbestos part, because my understanding is asbestos under there too.
Yes.
Their floor and their risers, all that stuff.
Oh, the band room.
Yeah, that's when we, right time, we probably have to do that anyway, because you have to rip all that out.
You have to take the risers out. Yeah, get all that.
It's in behind the lockers.
That's why you still.
That I don't- is it on-
I think the tile.
It could be. I was gonna say, these, I looked the other day and there's, actually, it's built up.
I was thinking when we were looking at our tour that you were in behind there too. the tile.
Could have been. And this is why we did not, we had previous band directors that wanted to take the risers out, and we
Oh, yeah.
did not, because we were worried about what would happen to
Once you touch
the
it.
tile.
Yeah.
You start popping them up, and
Truthfully, we would probably put it in legally, but,
the risers.
Those risers were here when I was here.
I know, but I'm saying we went through the asbestos without feeling that, I would assume they anchored right through it.
Well, you talk to some of the old superintendents, and they talk about how all of a sudden, over one weekend, the schools has a whole lot of asbestos gone that it didn't have before.
Right.
So, we don't wanna do that.
Oh, my.
Okay.
Other questions?
And also the phone for 200 times PA. Then we go to parking.
Oh, gosh, Dixie. All right, so we are out of parking spots. So Dennis had actually put together this, and it all surrounded what to do with this, that picture.
Which Dennis?
Haas. This has been a few years. And so he put this together and gave a bunch of options, and basically, this is the grassy area. We had originally, one of the options was to put like little parking in here and add 20 some odd, 30 parking spots. And then the big debate was what to do with the trees. So I kind of put in here that I think the first thing that if we want to address this area, that we have to have a plan for the whole area. That we don't just piecemeal,
Right.
put something in and then try to figure it out. So the first question is, what do we do with the trees? The second question is, can we get a variance from the city? Otherwise, we're going to have to blacktop it. Because the rule is anything new, you have to blacktop. So, this was mentioned, and I'm just gonna throw this out here. So I don't know how well that comes up. So this is current building. I need one of those little laser
Pointers?
needles. So right here is the greenhouse, and this is that area that had Mulkey's house and those houses that are right there, had 3 houses. So one of the things we talked about is these first 3 rows are faculty parking spots. And I think we can get about 39 spots out of there. There's about 13 in each row, 3 rows, 39. Right? So, but if you could, I don't know how many parking spots you could get in here. We could put them in where there's no trees would have to come down. And then you could have the faculty park on this side. Turn this into student parking, add another 30, and then possibly, this is all faculty up here too. So we'd have to see, I don't know how many we can get out of here. We'd have to look and see how many parking spots we can get. But there's a couple roads that were the driveways that are there. Again, we'd have to talk to the city to find out if we could get a variance, if we want rock, or if we want to put asphalt in. But to me, that might be, and actually Doug and I talked about today, that might be the easiest or the quickest solution right now to get some parking spots. And then tackle this.
It's all even, it's
It's
all,
already-
yeah. Basically,
The only thing, I was thinking wasn't there some above ground drainage grids out there? That's not when we walked in. What was that?
Oh,
I don't remember.
The
The
front,
greenhouse
front,
and stuff?
the old front.
If there are, they're right,
Yeah, right there.
they're right up next to that
I
driveway.
say we lay it out, see how many spots you can get.
Yeah, and I like the idea of separating the faculty from the students parking too.
Well, and then one of it talks years ago was that we call it the Pizza Hut lot. Take that lot out and turn around and put that parking here. I think it's 56 spots. This would give us about 70. So you could gain a few more spots and then turn around and sell that to somebody. Because then what happens is you've got all the kids coming in this direction. Because right now we've got kids going across.
Right.
And I may have heard from somebody that I know really, really well, it gets incredibly aggravating when the kids just fly across the road in front of the cars and, you know.
Well, and that's a high traffic area,
God
that time
forbid
of day,
somebody would-
grade schools,
That's a
parents and
busy
things
road.
like that. We're lucky we haven't had accidents or something going on.
Oh, there has been. So anyway, it was, you know, again, I think if you're gonna piecemeal something, this would be something to piecemeal in. Because I don't necessarily wanna park in front of the cafeteria. This is the cafeteria door, the far cafeteria door, south. So if you put this in, you would not have that view of cars from the cafeteria, not that that makes that big a difference, but you could probably eliminate the trees. I'm sorry, put parking in without eliminating the trees.
You know, I mean, for all of you new folks, there was I don't know what I call it, a knockdown drag out about trees. There were, a former board, some people were real,
I'll vote knockdown, right?
and didn't care about the trees. Several people on the board loved the trees. I was one of them, but,
I was gonna say, I would lean towards the trees, but it's not a deal breaker for
well,
me.
but seeing this on the agenda when I drove in tonight, there's a big tree right here, and then all this space is open. There's another big tree right here, and then there's a little cluster of about 4 right here. And knocking down that one would open up, you know, I don't know how many, you know, like a whole lot of space right here. Knocking down this one would open up some more space, like right in here. If you left a little, you know, like that little cluster of 4. And these 2 that would be cut down are, I think, the 2 biggest trees on the, thanks, Ray, are the 2 biggest trees on that wasn't this.
Oh,
But just as a historical perspective, there were some adamant folks on both sides. But this to me, I don't know that we ever talked about that, because there were some trees here that came down over the past 5, 6 years. I remember watching one, I think 2 of them were here that came down.
I have another question. Is that still, right there next to the school, the big empty field, is that still used for PE classes? Okay, I was gonna say, because there's a big corner right there, you know, you just take a parking lot entrance off the side there and have quite a few spaces right there next to the school too, without using the entire space even.
That's from my performing arts center.
Okay, sorry. We won't-
Not,
When are you retiring?
huh?
When are you retired?
Just say that out loud.
You did, that's
Okay.
fine.
Aw.
My chainsaw's in the shop right now, I'm getting tuned up. So that's what I
How
think
many
about
acres,
trees.
keeping the trees if
The
possible?
tree thing is, I love trees, but they are huge risk.
Yeah, we want to park under one.
We had a tree here, right in the middle, I think it was right there for years, and it, all it did was cause problems.
Shed limbs.
Well, that limbs and, yeah, it was just a complete pain.
Insurance nightmare.
See, I'm gonna disagree with you. If we're gonna make that a parking lot, mow it over and do it all one big parking lot.
And, you know, I'm surprised I'm saying this.
And I'm a tree lover, but I think
Yeah,
if
I
you're
am
gonna move
too.
a parking lot, you need to do it all one.
I'm surprised I'm saying this, and I'll deny it to those other people. The thought of parking like here with the, you know, with the busy street here, if everybody could be in this area, you know, wherever they are,
It's all
that would make
centralized.
this, and you close this one down, that would make this a much safer avenue for.
I think
Plus,
to make it work,
selling off that corner lot could be beneficial for paying for the rest of it.
well, but I think you're probably gonna have to use this
Sometime anyway.
for parking to get the faculty out of.
Separated.
Well, not necessarily separated, but just to get the faculty out of that lot so you can have a little bit
Some
of,
of these kind of
Uh-huh.
prime spaces here.
yeah, cream it out.
I had the pleasant fortune of being here around in the school a couple times in the last month, and adding more cars over here is a scary proposition too. I'm
Yeah.
telling you what, the traffic
It does get
around here,
busy.
Oh,
it's crazy.
well,
It's scary almost.
the solution to that is,
I know.
go west, young man.
Yeah.
Yeah, one day I came up Tank Road, I ended up dropping my grandson off here,
Mhm.
so that I could go that way. The other day, one time I got trapped in there.
Yeah, you can get trapped in there for a while.
But everybody trying to pull out of these, that location, that
Mhm.
location, that location, they're coming out of this parking lot, they're coming out here, they're coming out there. It was unreal. And it's like to
Yeah.
add to that, it's pretty scary.
Our daughter actually comes to school early so she can beat the rush, and then she'll sit in her truck and play on her phone until all that clears out, and then she'll leave.
Yeah, that's, I wouldn't, right now at least, until something changes, and you got one way, so that's about as good as you can do. But I wouldn't be an advocate of getting rid of that and pushing more in there. I do like the idea of putting staff over here potentially, to get them out and make some free up some space.
Based on the faculty up there. You already got a partner one.
That's just changing one for the
They're
other.
gonna hang me from a tree. if I
Maybe
move it
they're too far
Oh,
away,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
You're just
From the
swapping
other
one for the
building.
other, though. If he
Yeah.
needs more spots, you're just swapping one for the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily close this down, even though that might be a traffic nightmare, it can't get any worse than over here. I was shocked at what I saw, I was like, unreal. I was like, the fact that you don't have a wreck every day is amazing to me. But the kids are anxious to get out of there, and they're coming from all different directions, I understand their side too, they wanna go.
I think cost is gonna be an issue, a big issue, because I don't know. I spoke to Tony Funderburg a little bit, and, it was one of those, oh, I don't know, I guess you could ask for a variance. But if I was a betting man, I'd say they're gonna say no.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
Because
If we do it, we're
any-
gonna have to get the community behind us. It seems odd to me, this is just Mike's perspective, but it seems odd to me that they'll go on a chip every year, but we're not allowed to. It doesn't make sense to me. I understand what they're trying to do, but they have to understand we got budget constraints just like they do. They don't go out and rip their roads up, put in asphalt. And if they put anything in new, I would be surprised if they may with this new police thing, but
The new businesses,
I was gonna say the
I know
requirement.
they're requiring it.
right, but not,
It seems odd though,
Well,
because
even
it's
with the new
not gonna
development,
be our
there's
dust
some
that causes
issues
the
that's on
problem.
the paper with the new development.
It's the
They're
dust.
asking that they use pavement and not oil and sugar.
Well, I understand, but to my point, they're saying the reason behind that is the dust. And they put down oil and chip every year. And it dusts the whole town out.
Oh, yeah. If I recall, Gary inquired, he didn't make a formal inquiry, but an informal inquiry. And I think got word back that if they're going to enforce that throughout the town, they'll have to enforce it here. In
They
terms
don't
of-
follow the enforcement themselves, though, so
Right.
Mike's.
Mike raised a good point.
I think it's worth challenging it.
Yeah, I remember having that conversation with Gary.
Something
I don't think we got anything to lose.
new stuff.
well,
Yes, but that doesn't mean we'll get it.
The
So we have
first-
to plan for not getting it.
yeah, the first thing we have to do is just kind of do a
Exactly.
little studying to figure out where we would like to look at it, if we'd like to look at it. And again, probably have some kind of a plan.
I was gonna say, I think if we have to go blacktop, we have to go piecemeal. I don't think we could do either that whole big section at a time.
That L, the company from Millstot came in about 5 years ago and told me 250,000 to blacktop.
Just the L?
This one right
Yeah.
here. Yeah, because we had put this in, that was the last house we purchased,
Right.
and this L right here was gonna be 250,000. Yeah. So,
So I would guess we'd have to piecemeal. But if we did plan in ahead of time, then we could do that.
That's
And
your
if
FICA
you-
plan, right?
it's not,
In there.
it is not.
Greg, help me, I don't remember, did Penny, when he inquired, there was some kind of a caveat about, because we had inquired before the village said, here's how it's gonna be, that there may be some, maybe a grandfather, that request. Do you remember anything like
No.
that?
But this was not the village that changed anything, this was the state.
Okay.
The state changed the rules and said, or somebody challenged it and said that, yes, school districts are not exempt, they have to follow the covenants of the village.
Anything new, or
Yeah.
part.
We gotta have their permission.
Well, whatever it is, if the village changed, then we could do it, but the state just said, you have to do whatever the village tells you to do. So I don't know how much work you want me to do.
I would try to
Just
play
see-
out the east side and see what we can get,
Yep.
see what we can get out of there. How many do you need for faculty? Say if you just took the ones out of the.
Probably
gravel
60.
lot.
You can.
Probably
Well,
should
the
say
gravel
60.
lot's 39. We park on the street,
No, I understand.
yeah, we park on
If
the
we could
street, we
just
park
get
here.
part of it.
Right, so, and then we park all along here. So,
So you said 39, so we would need.
these are 30,
39.
this is about 39, those 3 rows, that's faculty, the first
So
3
if we
rows.
get 39 out of that section, that would be a good start. I don't think we're going to, though. With finagle. My parking spots at work. I
Well, you
have
can kinda
to
do it
park.
one way,
They're like,
you know,
yeah.
you're just going one way.
And you
Yeah.
can't, the person behind can't leave it to the person in front of them.
Yeah.
I'd say for now, let's see what we can fit in there. See what we can fit, and then, once, like you said, once we come up with an actual plan, we can go to the city and we'll have that conversation.
Can I wait till I get one, because I get cold?
I don't like to hurry it.
Do what?
I don't like to hurry it. I think the older you get.
Where's that old thing now?
No, I've always liked one. I'd rather be sweating to death than cold any
Do it.
day.
Well, and then, and I know I need to grab those, cause FGM is the one that kind of, I think you guys drew them up. And we were talking about, this is one of the first things that ever happened when I was, became administrators, we did a strategic planning on a Saturday. And, they had talked about whether we wanted to stay in this location, or whether they wanted to possibly buy the grade school's property by the bus garage and move out there. The board decided they wanted to stay. And I think either before or after, you guys drew up just some real quick drawings. And basically what it did is it cut off everything from here north. eliminated that, and it moved it over here, put a new gym. I think they did have a performing arts, and they had all the shops and classrooms, they were all right here. This became then a practice field.
Or parking lot.
For me, I like the idea of having the kids come in one direction, one entrance, as opposed to, you know,
Absolutely.
we had multiple doors open, basically all the doors open before school. So, because kids get dropped off by the grade school. So I'll do that.
That'll be an interesting discussion.
The Performing Arts Center.
That or the parking lot,
The parking lot.
or the trees.
The parking lot. Well, all these ideas, have merit in their own way. Just a matter of agreeing philosophically with, one direction, so.
I know one person's gonna haunt me if we get to those trees.
That's one of the first persons I thought of.
Rita, too.
She was passionate. She was
Very passionate about it.
Dennis is pretty passionate.
Yeah.
I'm softening in my old age.
We do not use that for anything.
Yeah, kids aren't going out there and sitting under the trees and reading a book.
We do not use it for classrooms. They do come out on this side. So they will come out underneath that tree or even between the trees, because there's that Terra Dove bench that's out there.
Yeah.
So they do come out, that's actually on this side of the sidewalk, it's right here. So they'll come out, different classrooms, and they'll sit and read and do things like that.
Yeah, and
But
the
we don't use that other,
side at all.
no. So, all righty.
Anybody, anything else? Any other subjects we talked about? All right, I guess we'll adjourn.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.